played lead guitar at that concert, this gentleman, Brian Ray. This is his band, the Bayonets. This song is called Crash Boom Bang. Steve Van Zandt has named it one of the coolest songs in the world. And I mentioned I saw Brian's band last summer and how great they were. Well, Brian was the guitar player. Most of you have heard of him, but I guarantee you everybody has heard of the bass player in the band that I saw him play with last year, and that would be Sir Paul McCartney. Yes, in addition to working with the Bayonets, his band, for more than a decade, Brian Ray has been the guitar player for Paul McCartney. And if you were at Safeco Field, you saw Brian on stage last year, and that was great. And this music he has out today is seriously cool. If you want to check it out, go to brianray.com, and you can also catch this Brian this summer, of course, touring America with Paul McCartney. Brian Ray, welcome to 95.7 KJR, and thank you so much for calling us this morning from Kansas City.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the kind words this morning.
Oh man, I've listened to that and Smartphone. These are some great songs you've got.
Oh man, we've just had a really terrific time. My good partner Oliver Lieber and I started this thing out just over a year ago, thinking, well, I've got some time on my hands. Let's just do some singles and see what happens. And lo and behold, a year later, we are about set to release our first full-length album on Robo Records. It's just been one really great news day after another with us. I'm really enjoying it.
And Oliver, his dad, is a prolific writer. I mean, he wrote Hound Dog, and I mean, he comes from songwriting royalty. So I'm assuming he co-writes these with you.
That's correct. Yeah, Oliver and I have been co-writing for many, many years, and Oliver goes back for many years in his own right as a very strong songwriter producer. He's written for Aretha and Rod Stewart and the Corrs and all sorts of people through the years, and I've always enjoyed writing with him. His lyrical sense is really, really hot. So we have a lot of laughs writing, and I think that's what shows in the music. It's real people playing in a real room. It's real people just banging out the details of recording together. And I have this theory that you can hear that in a record. And then you can also hear the lack of it when it's just one guy around a computer correcting everything in his path.
Right. This is
real music.
This is straight ahead rock and roll. I mean, but performed by masters of rock and roll. But this is fun music.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to hear you spinning it. Yeah, it's really exciting for me.
Yeah, and we're going to spin a couple more this hour and give you a little more taste of the Bayonets. Now, the name we were mentioning, it's we have a local band. Maybe I shouldn't even mention this; it might get them in a little trouble. But there's a local Bayonets too. Is that a name that there might be more than a pretty common name?
There are a few groups called the Bayonets or Bayonets, but we have the URL.
Okay.
And we have the naming rights. So
so you're the Bayonets.
We are the Bayonets.
Uh-huh.
So if anyone starts causing us trouble, we're going to have to throw our weight around. You know what I'm saying? Yep. We got some people upstate that might need to take care of it.
Well, I think
so. Five girls from Bayonne, New Jersey, call themselves the Bayonets. Maybe a little SOL, right? Right.
Yeah, that's probably TTES, right?
Yeah.
Well, you've definitely got some people, and so does Paul. There was an Instagram picture that Paul put on the web this week that was just hilarious. I know you guys just played Omaha. You're in Kansas City now with the band, and it's him and Warren Buffett sitting on a park bench. A kid takes a selfie, and I guess they were there getting ice cream or something. Does Paul ever invite you and Abe out for ice cream or anything when he's going to meet Warren Buffett?
Well, this was a special trip because he drove from Lincoln down to Omaha, or up to, or over to. I'm not sure. My geography friends might catch me for this. But, yeah, sure. I mean, we hang out with Paul. He's very, very generous and very, very fun with us. He spends an awful lot of time hanging with the people and the crew and the band members in his band. He wants to hang out and chat and laugh every night. He just wants to have a laugh. And he's interested in so many things in this life. It's impressive. He's curious, and he's brilliant, and he's funny as hell. So we have a super time on the road. And going to an ice cream shop isn't something we've done yet, but I'm sure that's in our future.
Brian, you've been on stage with Paul so many times, but when I look back through your history, I've seen you play a lot of times, and I had no idea. Not that I didn't love your work, but Keith Richards, Santana, Joe Cocker, John Lee Hooker, Bo Diddley, Etta James. How do you get in the door for all these people? Once you get in the door, your work speaks for itself, but how do you get your foot in those doors?
That's a funny thing. I mean, I think I've applied myself. I think that I have done the footwork. I have certainly paid my dues after high school, getting a job with Etta James as her musical director for 14 years and doing the Chitlin circuit, finding a band that day and rehearsing them and going on to play, and then traveling with her and her husband and her kid in a car to the next city. Those are the things that prepare you for a life like the one I found myself in with Paul McCartney. And then there's another element, though, and that is just pure luck. And I have to tell you, you can't say enough about luck. Even Paul talked about Warren Buffett saying it's so much of what he's done to be so successful hinged on luck. Decisions, and Paul has to say, little decisions here and there that made through his career. You can't mark it all down to brilliance, although he's got plenty of that. It's luck. There's some luck involved. I was lucky to get with Etta James, lucky to get with Johnny Halliday, and very lucky to get with Paul McCartney and to stay here for all these days. And staying is a bigger trick, isn't it?
Yeah. Etta James and Paul McCartney, there are no really bigger names in show business. I mean, these almost transcend legend. These are people that we'll talk about centuries from now, not just decades from now. Have you noticed anything that people like that have in common?
You know what? That's a really, really great question. I feel like, again, I'm kind of talking, out of school, but even Paul spoke about this, that Warren Buffett I'm talking about, talked about the fact that he couldn't wait to get up in the morning, and he has a skip and a step to get into his office the next day and get back to work. It's a joy for what you do. And, not everybody in this world, obviously, gets to do the thing that really floats their boat and makes them super happy in their lives for a living. But I would say that those that do, those that are successful, I would say, would all tell you they love what they do. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
And they do it for well beyond the living part. Paul's obviously got a comfortable living, and when I saw you guys play at Safeco, that's, even though, the place is full and there's certainly plenty of money to go around for everybody, that's not why he's doing it. He's doing it because he wants to play for us. I want to ask you quickly about Etta. Her song, At Last, is the number one song at weddings. It's the number one song for the bride and groom to have a first dance. Did you ever play any weddings with Etta James? Any really rich people says, I want Etta here to play that song for me live?
That's a really funny thing. I don't think we ever did. Now, Etta may have done so after I went on in another direction in around 1988. You see, I started with her in 1974 when I was 19. But so, to be honest with you, the interest in that song globally, that song exploded really after the Rain Man film, where it was used so well in that very sweet little dance scene with Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise up in that hotel suite in Vegas. And that's the first time that thing was reintroduced to a new generation. Now, mind you, whenever we played it live with Etta, people would go crazy for it because Etta's fans were in love with it. But it has become that song in the last 30 years. but that song came out in, 1961?
Right.
So, songs and music have very, very long careers of their own, long lives of their own. And songwriters often talk about these songs are now, children that have left the home, and their job is to go out there and now support me. And I think, that's just one of those cases that song, somehow the best stuff rises to the top,
Yeah, well, even currently, right now, was it Rhapsody or one of the music services said that is the number one song for the weddings for this summer. I mean, it tops any song that's come out since. I want to ask you, Brian, when you're touring with Paul, I assume you can ask for anything you would ever want on a concert rider. What does Brian Ray request be made available at every gig?
I want all the brown M&Ms that Van Halen didn't eat.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So I want all of those and only brown M&Ms.
And I'm guessing you guys you travel a little beyond first class. If you're going like when you were over in Asia, do you get your own plane to do that sort of thing?
Well, let's just put it this way. Paul takes really good care of everybody on his tour, and we are not wanting. It's a beautiful thing. It's very sort of sweet, and it's casual, but it's done really well with very, very thoughtful crew in every department. Every department of Paul's organization is groovy, is cool, is thoughtful. Everyone does a little more than 100% because they all want to be called back. And so that makes for a very happy team.
Well, you keep getting called back. You've been at it now. And Abe, I've seen the last 2 or 3 shows I've seen with Paul have been you guys. And is it true the first gig you ever played with Paul was at the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? My little audition for Paul was at 2002's Super Bowl, in the one song before the national anthem. And that was the song Freedom. And that is the first time I ever saw a stage standing beside Paul McCartney. And I was nervous as all hell. But, Abe and I go back together nearly 20 years now. And it is Abe that is responsible for giving me the opportunity to be in Paul's band by giving my name and number to Paul's producer, David Kahn. So big shout-out to Abe Laboriel Jr.
Hey, Abe is the best. Pedro Bartez, our producer here, is a drummer, and I think we have to both agree that they just don't get any better.
Nobody like him. There's nobody like him.
He is something
There's
else.
Nobody like him, and you are correct, sir. Yeah, and he's talented beyond drums, too. He just made a really cool little poster for me with my band, The Bayonets, and he took the title of the album, which is the same as the single you just got through playing. The album title is
Crash Boom Bang.
Coming up soon. And Abe fashioned a poster for me just using images, an image of a crash, an image of an explosion, and an image of some naked woman's silhouette, and so and everybody, I put it on my Facebook page, and everyone's having a good time with that. So he's a talented guy.
And
Talent knows no boundaries, I would say.
Speaking of naked women, I've watched your videos, and while they aren't naked, there are plenty of women dancing around in them. I like that.
Yeah, we had to add clothes in post-production. Didn't get by the censors, yeah.
Well, one is a smartphone, and I want to play that now. Brian's band is the Bayonets, and I hope you tour with Paul. I hope Paul stays on the road and keeps you busy for a long time, but if there is a break, I would love to see the Bayonets get up here to the Northwest. Any chance of taking this out for a tour once the album comes out?
That is my first goal with the Bayonets. If we ever get a chance of enough of a heads up to plan a tour to do a West Coast swing, wouldn't that be fun? Maybe a couple of train trips and get all the way from Vancouver down to San Diego and have a blast. We have an album release party coming up on July 24th in LA at a club called No Vacancy, and wow, we'd love to see any of you guys there if you want to come down.
Oh, man.
Talking guest list, we can make that trip.
Oh, I think we could figure that out. July 24th, that is next Thursday. Unfortunately, I know that because I am committed to something. My 15-year-old daughter's coming back from Europe. If I left her stranded at the airport and said,
for a good reason.
Yeah,
hey.
it's for a good reason. I'm down in L.A., I think she'd understand.
Yeah, you're like rock and roll.
You betcha, man. Speaking
No
of
way, Dad.
Speaking of rock and roll, we're going to play Smartphone right now. Brian Ray, he's out on the road with Sir Paul McCartney, his band, The Bayonets. The album will be out soon. The release is next week. We will post a link to all this at bobrivers.com. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us up here in Seattle. And if you get here, we have a wonderful live venue for you to play right here in our studio, the Carter Subaru Live Theater, state-of-the-art equipment, and we'd love to put you guys in to play a couple live songs.
Well, that sounds great. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me this morning. It's been a total joy, and I want to give a little shout-out to Michael and Shelley Soli, who helped me, and they live right there in Seattle. They help me with my website, and they help me with all my merchandising, and they're two very kind people who have been so helpful. So shout-out to Michael and Shelley and all of my fans out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian.